Hey there, this is Akshay Madan. Welcome back to a new video, and this video can be super helpful for those students, those IT professionals, those freshers who are seeking their career in mobile app development field. Or even if you want to learn this field from your interest, for your interest, that's also totally fine. So without wasting more time, let's get started and let's put the topic of the day, that is I want to become a full stack. I'm again repeating this part, full stack mobile app developer, not a front end, not a back end, just a full stack mobile app developer. Let's put the topic. So now we have put the topic, and again now we know the importance of this word, that is full stack developer. So what is full stack developer? You already know who is a mobile app developer, who is a web app developer, and who is a game developer, but who is a full stack developer? So full stack developer is a person or developer who can build a software from the start till the end. He is not dependent on any other developer. So if I'm just a front end developer, if I'm just a front end developer, then I'll be just knowing HTML, CSS. I'm talking about web tech stacks, HTML, CSS, or I can know JS, right? And if I'm just a backend developer, then I'll be knowing Node Express, right? I'll be knowing, let's say, Flask or Django, right? In front end, I can know, let's say, Flutter for mobile, React for mobile, React Native for React for web, and React Native for mobile, Angular, right? Vue.js. So these are all the front end developer tech stacks. In backend also we have Node Express, Flask, and Django. But the person who is a full stack developer, he can not only code in front end, not only code in backend, but he can also connect these two domains, right? So this is the concept of being a full stack developer. Now let's get started with, so now you know the difference between front end, back end, and the full stack. Now before we jump into the main topic, you should be clear with two things: why and how, right? How we are going to talk about, this complete video is only about how I can become a full stack developer. But you should also know, why should I become a full stack developer? Is it a growing field in 2023? Yes. I simply give simple answers that yes, it's a growing field. And if you ask me this question in 2025, 2026 also, this will be a growing field because the market cap is too large. Mobiles are not going to go anywhere, right? And maybe like some part can be added to it. Like you will also be you will not only be just making apps for mobiles, but you will also be making apps for watches, right? Or some other display screens, like foldable mobile apps. But at the end, the tech stacks are going to remain same, the concepts are going to remain the same. So why? Yes, you can become it, right? Now how can I become a mobile app developer? Let's get started with that. So I like sharing my stories, and then you can relate it with your life, right? So this actually becomes very easy to communicate, right? So how I became a full stack developer, right? So I was in first year when I decided that I really like making apps. And in first year also I made an app where people were able to share memes. So I did not publish it all to the app store, all to the play store. I just shared it with my friends, and I got a very good feedback. They were able to upload their images, they were able to upload the data or the memes that they were sharing to the Firebase. So I used Kotlin and Firebase to build that app, right? So this is around 2020 when I was in first year, and I decided to become a mobile app developer, right? And at this point of time, as I just told, I was using Kotlin and Firebase. So I learned these two tech stacks in about 3 to 4 months. And after these 3 to 4 months, I was able to make that app, and I named that app as Memebook, right? So I was inspired from Facebook, so I named my app as Memebook, right? So you can now relate that in 3 to 4 months you can actually make an app where you are able to do CRUD operations, right? So I hope that you know about CRUD operations: create, retrieve, update, and delete, right? Where you are updating a data, you're creating some data, retrieving some data, deleting some data from your cloud database, right? In my case, my cloud database was Firebase. So now you know that in 3 to 4 months you are actually able to make projects. You are able to understand the concept, you're able to make UIs, you're able to make connections between your front end and your database, right? So this was my idea, telling you this story. Now I soon realized that, hey, I have made this app for Android because this was in Kotlin, so definitely this app won't work on iOS, right? So I made this app for Android, and my Android friends were able to use it, but what about the iOS? So soon I realized that okay, this is good, but I am interested in iOS development also. If I'm making an app, if I'm investing some time, that app should work not only on the Android but also on the iOS, right? So this thing was actually wrong. I used to think that why people learn Android development, why people learn iOS development, why don't they learn a single tech stack, the cross-platform frameworks that are there like React Native and Flutter, and why don't they just learn that and make apps for both the platforms? Why not? So I'll tell you first my story, and then I'll tell you what's the solution of this feeling, or what is the solution of this, what's the right way to think. So around 2020 end, or you can say 2021 start, I started learning Flutter, right? And I started learning Flutter, and I did learn Flutter because my actual motive was to learn Flutter and then also teach. At that point, 2021, Flutter was kind of new, and there were not many tutorials, and I was already teaching Python, so I thought that let's learn Flutter completely and let's put some Flutter videos on my channel too, right? So I started learning Flutter, and again in 3 to 4 months I created a complete e-commerce app for one of my friend who was running a grocery shop, right? His father was running a grocery shop, and he demanded me that, hey, you also know making apps, can you make me a complete e-commerce application where we are able to upload our groceries and people nearby are able to order it, right? So that's it, right? So again, it was just a CRUD operation, and I did not do any rocket science there. I just created some basic UIs were already there in Figma on like as open source projects. So I just got the design uh, inspiration from Figma and Dribble, right? So I'm writing all these platforms over here, Figma and Dribble. These are like the best platforms where you can find some free resources, some free inspirations for your designs for app and websites, right? So I again made a CRUD application, and this is again in 3 to 4 months, where I connected my Flutter app with again Firebase. I used again Firebase. So you are now also aware that in 3 to 4 months you can actually learn Flutter also, and you can make simple projects by watching some tutorials, by reading blogs. So this is how I learned Flutter. So this was okay, but now I also know that to gain more experience, to get some industry experience, I had to do internships. And this was a time when I was about to end my second year. So again, there was some college pressure also, where we had to do some internships. So I did some internships. I got some real life experience, real industry experience, and there I realized that, hey, Flutter and Firebase are not at all enough. So if you are learning mobile app development and you want to become a full stack developer, then Flutter and Firebase, or you can say that React Native and Firebase are not enough, right? Why I got this feeling? Because when I was working as an intern there, I realized that companies are not using Firebase as their database. Yes, Firebase is a NoSQL database and it is supported by Google Cloud servers, but Firebase is actually costly. And I've also created a video on should you use Firebase, or is Firebase scalable? You should definitely watch that out, and then you will also get to know that why someone should use Firebase or someone should not use Firebase, right? So at this point I realized that companies are actually using Node, Express, or some companies are using Flask, or some are using Django for the backend of their products, right? Why? Because actually these servers are very much scalable. They provide consistency. So let me write. They provide scalability. They provide consistency. And the most important thing that everyone needs is flexibility, right? So even if when you will go and apply for jobs, and if you will just say that, hey, I just know Flutter and I've made projects in Firebase, companies will either reject you or they will offer you very, very less package, right? In India, you can expect around 4 to 5 LPA, that's it. But if you will say that, hey, I not only know Flutter and Firebase, but I have made projects in these backends, and I can show you my projects are hosted, and I've also worked on these projects, not on these projects, I've also worked on these tech stacks in my internships, in my projects, in my college projects. So that will put a very good impression, and companies will find you the right choice for them, because companies are actually using these backends and they don't need to teach you when you will join, right? So their teaching time will save, their knowledge transfer time will save. So definitely they will like choose you for the position, right? Because you already know these stuff which they had to teach you, right? So this is again one point that I realized when I was doing my internships. I hope that this whole video, this whole my story thing will really help you relate to yourself, and then you can take the right decision for yourself, right? But when I at this point, it was around 2021 July, and I realized this whole situation, which all projects I had already created. So this is also important. I just not created uh, that the Flutter project which I just told you. I just not created. I created many projects, around 15 to 20 projects I had already created. So let me tell you those projects also which I created before learning a new thing, right? So I created a to-do app, which is obvious. I created a calculator, which is obvious. Then I created e-commerce app, which I just told you. Then I created a WhatsApp clone. These all repositories are still available on my GitHub, and you can check those out, right? I created Netflix. I still this Netflix clone and this WhatsApp clone, I watched a YouTube tutorial. I don't remember the YouTuber name, but they are really good. They really help me understand the UI concepts, the containers, the columns, the rows, everything, right? And finally, I had created, I guess it was a grocery app. It was just a UI, but it was a grocery app, right? And I think of Raja Yogans, who is again a Flutter developer, and he created a furniture app UI, and this also I had cloned. I also coded myself, and these are some of the applications that I built in Flutter before learning a new thing, right? So in my mobile app development journey, I learned Kotlin, Firebase, then Flutter, then made these projects, and then thought that this is not enough. Let me learn some backend technology also. Now, one regret also I'm going to tell you over here, which I still have, that I did not focus much on the clean architecture, right? The clean architecture and state management. If I had made or if I had learned clean architecture and state management before starting or before jumping on the backend, my backend projects would have been more cleaner, they would have been more standardized, and they would have been more scalable, right? So I should have learned clean architecture and state management. I was still using provider, or I guess I was not even using provider. I was just dependent on getx or setstate till at this point for all these projects. So this is my biggest regret in my Flutter journey or in my mobile app development journey, that I did not focus on the industry level standards or clean architectures, the architectures which companies use, right? So this is my regret, but that's okay. I hope that you don't have this regret after learning the complete mobile app development, right? So now in around 2021 September or October, when I was in my third year, I decided to learn backend also, right? So now I had experience with some UI frameworks, Flutter, Kotlin, Firebase, and everything. Now I started to focus on backend, right? So I started with obviously we have some good choices over here: Node Express, then we have Flask and Django. Which one should you choose, Node Express or Flask Django? If you will say that which companies use, mostly Node Express, Node and Express. Flask and Django also, there are a lot of companies which are dependent on Python, Django for their servers. But if you're in college and your focus is to get an internship and get a job, definitely go ahead with Node Express, right? Or the other point of choice can be on the basis of whether you know JS, you are expert in JS, or you are expert in Python. So if you are expert in Python, then go ahead with this. If you're expert in JS or any other language, and if you want to just start it, just go ahead with Node Express. So I chose Node Express, right? Actually, I had some experience with Flask and Django also, because as you know that my previous videos are related to machine learning and data science. So I built like 2 or 3 projects in Flask Django, but still I would suggest you to go ahead with Node Express, because it is easy to understand. A lot of resources are there, and I hope you also know this fact that on Stack Overflow, around 50% of the developers are JavaScript developers, and a huge community is there to support and resolve your doubts. So go ahead with Node and Express, right? So I started learning Node Express, and again I would say that it took me around two months, right, to build my first project, where I created an API. It was not an app, it was just an API, right? So I created an API which was scraping data from the Amazon website. So I created this API which was scraping data from Amazon, and when the price of Apple iPhone was dropping below around, let's say, some amount X, so it was sending me a mail. So I used MailChimp to send me a mail, right? So it was sending me a mail to my email address, right? So this was the API that I created. Now when I created this API, now I thought that now let's use my Flutter skills or my mobile app development skills to build a complete project, right? So what app did I build? I built an application where you had to put the Amazon link of a product, and you had to put a alert price, right? So you'll put a Amazon link and you will put a price, right? And when the price of that product dropped below this limit price, then you will get an email, and you also have to put your email, right? So this was the application, basic application that I built, and this was my first complete project where I had used, let me put, Flutter for front end. Then I used Node and Express to build my backend. Then third, I used MongoDB as my DB, my database, and I used MailChimp as a third-party service, and I used Heroku to host my server, right? So these were all the tech stacks that I learned. Now you will say that, is this all enough? If I'm learning Flutter or React Native, Node Express, MongoDB, any third-party services I'm able to integrate, then Heroku, are all these enough? I'll say no, right? Because full stack developer doesn't mean that you have to learn a lot of technologies. Full stack developer means that you have to be an expert in one front-end technology and some back-end technologies, right? You have to be an expert. So this also I realized when I joined my second internship, and I realized that, hey, if I know Flutter and if I know Node Express, that's totally fine. But the code which is written there in the company's repositories, I'm not able to understand, right? Because I have learned these tech stacks, but I'm still a beginner. So now the point comes when you know these tech stacks, but you need to become a master of it, right? So you need to become a king of all these tech stacks, right? How can you become king? Obviously, internships if you are in college, then read open source codes, third, projects. These three are just the mantras which you can just follow, and you can become a king of full stack development. Now this is okay, and I'll still miss one part, that are all these enough to become a full stack developer? No. One more thing is there, that is CI/CD. Now let me explain you this. You have to know CI/CD if you are joining a company, if you are joining a startup, or as an intern, as a full stack mobile app developer or a full stack web app developer. You should know CI/CD. What is CI/CD? Let's say you built an app. Let's say you build this app, and it is live on Play Store and App Store. And now you think that, hey, my app needs one more feature. My app needs a bug fix, right? So you will definitely code that feature, or you will fix that bug, and you will push that code to GitHub. But you again have to publish that app on Play Store and App Store, right? So this is going to take a lot of time. This is going to waste a lot of time, right? So what CI/CD is? It is continuous integration and continuous deployment, where you just write or add a feature or code something on VS Code, push your code to GitHub, and that CI/CD third-party service, that is, let's say Bitrise, we can take. Bitrise is a CI/CD service, or you can say GitHub Actions, right? So that is automatically going to manage all this stuff. It is going to pull the latest master branch code, and it is going to again, it will be connected to your App Store and Play Store accounts, your consoles, and it is going to publish that app automatically, right? So this is CI/CD, and every developer should at least know how this works or what it is, right? Now one more question. I had put in front of you when I was at this point, when I told you that I built my first app using Kotlin and why I shifted to Flutter or a cross-platform mobile development framework. Why? So should you not learn Kotlin? Is it that case in 2023, or what should you do? No, this is not the case. You should have to, you must have to learn Kotlin or Swift if you are becoming a master of mobile app development. Why? Because the plugins which are there on pub.dev or on Kotlin plugin marketplace, or right, so like where you just copy the plugin version and you just copy the plugin name and you put it in your app and just use it, or packages, right? These plugins are actually written in native languages, right? So let me give an example. Image picker, right? So this is a plugin using which you can actually pick an image if your app is in Flutter or Dart, and you can actually pick an image from your gallery, right? So using this image picker plugin. So the implementation, the working of this image picker is actually different for Android and it is different for iOS. So this plugin is written in Kotlin also, or in Java also, and this plugin is also written in iOS also, and both of them were combined, or they were made compatible for Dart, right? So this was that case. So if you have to become a master of mobile app development, then you have to learn native technologies. Definitely, there is no other choice. So this was this was my complete story of mobile app development till now, where I know these tech stacks, right? And now I know state management and clean architecture also. So finally in my internships I had to use them, so there was no other choice. So I learned them and I mastered them, right? So now let me just summarize each and everything to become a full stack mobile app developer. So what all things you need, right? So first of all, you should definitely have native knowledge. By native I mean that Kotlin in 2023, or like in future, I would suggest you to go ahead with Kotlin only, not Java. And for iOS I will say you to use Swift, not Objective-C, right? So Kotlin and Swift for native. Then a cross-platform is must in today's date. So that can be Flutter and that can be React Native, right? Then next can be your backend. So this was all front-end works. Now backend, for backend you can take up Node, Express, or you can take Django and Flask, right? Then fourth can be your so obviously you have to learn a version control system. So version control, that's your GitHub. You have to be a master of GitHub. You should know all these GitHub actions, how these work, and your GitHub codes that you run in the terminal to push your code, to pull your code, right, to merge your branches. You should be a master of GitHub. Then definitely you should be knowing some platforms where you can host your servers. So that can be Heroku, that can be Render. These are very easy to use. And for next is CI/CD. For CI/CD, mostly companies are currently using Bitrise, or some companies do use CodeMagic, or you can use GitHub Actions, right? So I can say that just to start with, just to at least say that you are a full stack mobile app developer, and to get a job as a full stack mobile app developer, all these things are, I guess, more than enough. If you are knowing all this stuff, you are doing a great job. I will not make the video more longer. I think it was quite boring, but I hope that you all liked my story and my knowledge that I just shared with you. So till next content, keep coding, keep innovating, and thanks a lot.